In a peaceful corner of suburban America, where every lawn was trimmed just right and every mailbox stood at a perfect 45-degree angle, Dave and Lisa believed they had found something close to paradise. Willow Creek Estates was the kind of neighborhood that promised quiet evenings, friendly barbecues, and a community where everyone knew your name or at least your house number. They moved in with big dreams, a modest mortgage, and a vision of building a life together in a place that felt safe, familiar, and normal. Lisa, with her love for quirky little touches, had decorated their front yard with an assortment of plants, wind chimes, and, most importantly, the garden gnome. It wasn't just any gnome, it was an heirloom, passed down from her late grandmother, weathered but full of character. To Lisa, it was a little piece of family history, a cheerful reminder that this house was their home. But in Willow Creek Estates, appearances weren't everything. There were rules, lots of rules, and they were enforced by a committee that took pride in keeping the neighborhood picture perfect. Dave had warned Lisa about getting too attached to things that might not fit the HOA vision, but Lisa smiled and shrugged it off. "It's just a gnome," she said. One sunny afternoon, everything changed. Lisa was outside, carefully watering her flower beds, humming softly to herself, when a sharp voice interrupted her quiet moment. "Karen." Off-screen, authoritative. "Mom, you need to remove that immediately." Lisa turned to see Karen, an older woman, with a clipboard clutched tightly in one hand, lips pressed so thin they looked ready to snap. Karen was known in the neighborhood as the HOA enforcer, the person who seemed to take great pleasure in telling people what they couldn't do. Lisa blinked. "Remove what?" Karen's eyes zeroed in on the garden gnome, standing proud and slightly crooked near the tulips. "That garden gnome violates the Willow Creek Estates community standards," Karen said sharply. "It must be removed immediately." Lisa felt her stomach twist. "It's just a gnome." Karen's voice dropped a notch, colder now. "Rules are rules. Ma'am, you're expected to comply." Lisa looked around. A few neighbors were watching. Some gave her sympathetic glances. Others, like Karen, seemed to think she was just another rule breaker waiting to be tamed. Lisa took a deep breath. "It's a family keepsake. It means something to me." Karen's lips curled into something close to a sneer. "Personal feelings don't exempt you from community guidelines." As Karen walked away, clipboard tapping against her leg, Lisa stood there, confused and unsettled. This wasn't what she'd expected when she imagined life in the suburbs. Dave came outside then, noticing the tension. He pulled Lisa gently away. "Let's not make a scene," he said quietly. But inside, he was already thinking about what this meant. Days passed. The gnome remained carefully hidden behind a bush, out of sight, but still there. Lisa avoided Karen whenever she could, but the feeling of being watched never left. Then Karen showed up again, this time at the neighborhood pool. Lisa was chatting with a few friends when Karen marched over, voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Karen, stern, Lisa, your patio furniture is the wrong color. The cushions don't match the approved palette. You're in violation." Lisa's friends exchanged uneasy looks. Lisa, her patience thinning, tried to reason. "Can't we just find a way to work this out? It's just a chair." Karen's gaze narrowed, voice icy. "No exceptions. You'll have 10 days to fix it, or fines begin." The mood shifted. The small gathering around the pool went silent. People shifted uncomfortably as Karen stood her ground. Lisa felt trapped, overwhelmed. She looked over at Dave, who was watching quietly from a distance, jaw tight, eyes sharp. That night, Lisa couldn't sleep. The gnome wasn't just a decoration, it was a symbol of everything she loved about home. now threatened by a stranger wielding rules like a weapon. She didn't know it then, but this was just the beginning. The storm was coming, and Willow Creek Estates was about to reveal a side no one had seen before. The days after the pool incident were heavy. Lisa tried to carry on, pretending Karen's sharp words and cold glares didn't weigh on her. But it wasn't that simple. The garden gnome, once a cheerful presence, had become a quiet battleground. Every morning, Lisa would peek behind the bushes where it hid, a small act of defiance in a world of relentless control. Karen, however, was relentless too. The next morning, Lisa found a bright yellow notice taped to her front door, a formal violation citation. Garden gnome must be removed immediately. It read, failure to comply will result in escalating fines. Lisa's heart sank. It wasn't just about a gnome anymore, it was about control. She tried calling the HOA office, but got only a recorded message about community standards and enforcement policies. The message felt cold, impersonal, and final. Meanwhile, Karen's visits became more frequent. Sometimes she appeared without warning, inspecting Lisa and Dave's property as if they were suspects under surveillance. Lisa found herself constantly looking over her shoulder, wondering what she'd done wrong today. Neighbors started to notice the tension. Some whispered behind closed doors about Karen's overreach. Others avoided the drama entirely, unwilling to get involved. One afternoon, Lisa was gardening when Karen approached again. This time, the subject was Lisa's new bird feeder. Karen stern, Mom, that bird feeder violates Section 7.4 of the HOA guidelines. It must be removed. Lisa's voice shook. Why? It's just a bird feeder. Karen's eyes flashed. It's unauthorized. Please remove it by the end of the week. Lisa felt tears prick her eyes, but blinked them away. She turned back to her plants, feeling smaller than ever. That evening, she told Dave everything. He listened quietly, but beneath his calm exterior, his mind was racing. Dave, low, steady. This isn't just about a gnome or a feeder. Karen's trying to control you. And me. By extension. Lisa frowned. But what can we do? They have the rules, and they have the power. Dave shook his head, a hint of a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Power is only real if you let it be. Days later, the situation escalated. Karen arrived at their doorstep, a stack of papers in hand. It was a formal letter of threat, of fines, possible liens on their home, and an ultimatum, comply or face legal action. Lisa felt the walls closing in. This can't be happening, she whispered. But Dave wasn't ready to back down. He'd faced tougher battles before, just not in suburban front yards. Narrator rising suspense. The tension between Dave and Karen was about to explode, and Willow Creek Estates was about to learn that some homeowners don't fold under pressure. Meanwhile, Karen was oblivious to what she was stirring. She believed she was upholding order, defending the neighborhood from chaos, but in reality, she was lighting a fuse. One afternoon, at the community pool, the inevitable confrontation happened. Lisa was there, trying to enjoy the afternoon with friends, when Karen marched over. Her voice cut through the chatter like a knife. Karen commanding, Lisa, your patio chairs are still non-compliant. You have 48 hours to replace them, or you will be fined. Lisa looked around helplessly, eyes meeting her friends' worried gazes. Karen stepped closer, her tone hardening. And that gnome, if it isn't removed by tomorrow, expect further action. Lisa's voice cracked. Karen, please, this is too much. Karen didn't flinch. Rules are rules. Lisa swallowed hard, tears threatening to spill. The poolside crowd shifted, some looking away, others watching like spectators at a showdown. From the edge of the pool, Dave stepped forward, jaw clenched. His presence changed the energy in the air. Narrator, with a hint of foreboding. Dave was a man who didn't take threats lightly. He didn't say much, but his eyes told a story. One of battles fought, and one in places far beyond the neatly trimmed lawns of Willow Creek Estates. Lisa whispered, "Please don't get involved." Dave's voice was quiet but firm. This isn't just about the gnome anymore. As Karen stared him down, neither willing to back away, the air seemed to crackle with tension. What no one knew was that this wasn't just a neighborhood dispute. It was about to become a war of wills, and Dave was ready to bring a skill set Karen couldn't possibly imagine. The calm was shattered. Most people in Willow Creek Estates thought of Dave as the quiet guy next door, the one who mowed his lawn at dawn, nodded politely to neighbors, and rarely said much beyond a friendly hello. He wasn't the type to make waves. But beneath that calm surface was a man shaped by a very different world. Years before settling into suburbia, Dave had lived a life most would never imagine. He'd been a security contractor, trained in the art of breaching hostile compounds in some of the world's most dangerous places. This wasn't about lawn decorations or patio furniture. This was about infiltration, strategy, and survival. When Lisa told Dave about Karen's latest harassment, something in him shifted. Not anger, something colder, sharper, like a warning siren in the back of his mind. Lisa worried, "I don't want you to get involved. This is just neighborhood stuff." Dave, calm but firm, "Neighborhood or not, someone's threatening you. That's personal." That night, as Lisa lay in bed worrying, Dave sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through old files and manuals. From his previous work, tactics, rules of engagement, maps, he wasn't planning an assault. But he was preparing. Narrator building suspense. The thing about people like Dave is that they don't forget. They don't back down. And they know how to push back when backed into a corner. The next morning, Dave made a call, not to a lawyer or a friend, but to a former colleague who knew the rules of engagement in a very different kind of battlefield. Meanwhile, Karen continued her campaign. She was convinced that persistence was all it took to break Lisa and Dave's will. She sent more violation letters, each one more aggressive than the last. Neighbors whispered about the mounting tension. Some took Karen's side, believing in order above all. Others quietly hoped the couple would stand firm. One afternoon, Karen showed up unannounced, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning every inch of the property like a hawk hunting prey. Karen cold, "You're still in violation of Section 4.1 and 7.4. This is your final warning." Dave stepped forward calmly. "Dave, steady. Can we review these sections together? I'd like to understand exactly what's wrong." Karen hesitated, not expecting the challenge. Karen defensive, "It's the rules. You know the rules." Dave, smiling slightly, "Then let's talk specifics." Narrator intrigued. That small exchange changed everything. For the first time, Karen was confronted not with submission, but with questions she wasn't ready to answer. That evening, Dave pored over the HOA bylaws, hunting for loopholes, inconsistencies, anything that could help. He found them. Not enough to tear down the whole system, but enough to shake it. As days passed, Dave began drafting letters clear, precise, professional. No threats, no insults, just facts. But behind the scenes, he was also preparing in other ways. Ways Lisa didn't fully understand. Narrator hinting mystery. Because sometimes, the best defense isn't a loud argument, it's a quiet readiness for whatever comes next. And Dave was ready. The next HOA meeting was announced. Lisa was nervous. Karen was eager. Dave was silent, focused. The neighborhood would soon see what happens when a man who's breached hostile compounds turns his attention to a garden gnome. The announcement came like a ripple through Willow Creek Estates. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for Thursday evening. Normally, these meetings were dull affairs, endless discussions about landscaping colors and parking rules. But this time, everyone knew it would be different. Dave and Lisa felt the weight of the coming confrontation in every quiet moment. For Lisa, it was anxiety mixed with hope. For Dave, it was a calculated calm. The quiet before the storm. Lisa uneasy. Do you think this meeting will change anything? Dave measured, maybe. Or maybe it just sets the stage for days leading up to the meeting. Karen's patrols grew more frequent. She stopped by with new violation notices. A constant reminder that the gnome and the mismatched patio chairs were under siege. But Dave wasn't reactive anymore. He was proactive. Narrator intriguing, instead of answering Karen's every jab. With frustration, Dave reached out directly to the HOA board members, not with anger, but with questions. He requested copies of all relevant bylaws, enforcement procedures, and meeting minutes. He studied them like a blueprint, understanding where the HOA's power truly began and where it ended. And then he found it, a series of procedural missteps. The board had made violations of their own guidelines for issuing fines and notices. At first, he considered keeping it to himself, a silent advantage. But Dave knew that fairness wasn't about keeping secrets, it was about making sure the system worked for everyone. So he drafted a formal letter addressed to the entire HOA board, calmly outlining the errors and asking for a review of all enforcement actions against his property. Narrator suspenseful. This was uncharted territory for Willow Creek Estates. Most residents didn't question the HOA's decisions. But Dave's letter shook the foundation. Karen, when she heard about it, was furious. But instead of confronting Dave directly, she doubled down on her tactics. More notices, more threats, more attempts to intimidate. On the evening of the meeting, the community center filled up faster than usual. The usual crowd of homeowners, curious neighbors, and a few quiet observers took their seats. Karen arrived early, clipboard in hand, radiating confidence. She was ready to paint Dave and Lisa as the troublemakers. Dave arrived just before the meeting started, calm, collected, eyes scanning the room like a man preparing for a mission. The meeting began with the usual formalities, but tension hung heavy in the air. When the discussion moved to the enforcement actions against Dave and Lisa's property, the room grew silent. HOA chair official, we've received a formal request for review regarding recent violations issued to the Roberts residence. Karen was the first to speak, her voice sharp and sure. Karen authoritative. These violations are justified and necessary to maintain community standards. Then Dave stood. The room shifted. Dave calm, clear. Good evening. I'm here not to dispute the idea of community standards, but to ensure they're applied fairly and correctly. I've reviewed the bylaws and found procedural errors in the way these violations were issued. He outlined the key points with precision, missing notices, improper timelines, lack of board approval on certain fines. The room murmured. Some nodded, others shifted uneasily. Dave continuing. I'm asking the board to pause all enforcement actions against my property until a full review is completed. Karen's jaw tightened. Her usual confident smile was gone, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. Narrator building suspense. For the first time, the Queen of Rules was challenged not by defiance, but by facts. The board took a recess to consider Dave's request. Whispers filled the room. When they returned, the chair announced a temporary suspension of all fines and violations related to Dave and Lisa's property, pending a formal audit. Karen's eyes locked on Dave, a silent battle waging in her gaze. Lisa whispering to Dave, you did it. Dave quiet smile. This is just the beginning. Narrator closing this part. The calm neighborhood of Willow Creek Estates had never seen a fight quite like this. And though Dave's quiet approach had earned a small victory, the real war for respect, for fairness, for their home was far from over. What happens next? Stay with us, because this story is just heating up. After the HOA board's surprising decision to suspend enforcement actions, Willow Creek Estates buzzed with whispers and sideways glances. Some residents quietly admired Dave's boldness, while others worried about what the tension might bring. Lisa felt a fragile hope stirring, but she knew better than to think the fight was over. Lisa softly, "It felt like a win, but I'm scared it won't last." Dave steady, "Karen doesn't give up easily." And he was right. Karen, once the undisputed enforcer, found her authority shaken. The suspension was a public rebuke, and she wasn't ready to accept it. Behind the scenes, Karen began rallying a small group of like-minded neighbors. Their goal, to tighten the rules even further and push back against what they saw as Dave's insubordination. Meanwhile, Dave focused on the audit process. He worked with a few HOA board members who were quietly sympathetic, helping gather documents and ensure the review was thorough. Narrator intriguing, but tensions weren't just simmering between Dave and Karen. The neighborhood itself began to fracture. At the local coffee shop, neighbors whispered about the Roberts drama. Some took Karen's side, complaining about what they called exceptions and special treatment. Others saw Dave as a hero, standing up against bullying. One afternoon, Lisa overheard a conversation that made her stomach twist. Neighbor one whispering, "They say Dave's background isn't what he says it is. Could be trouble." Neighbor two nodding, "Yeah, some people don't belong in places like this." Lisa felt the sting of judgment, something she hadn't expected when moving here. That night, she confronted Dave. Lisa worried, "People are talking about you, about us." Double quotes. Dave quiet, serious, "I know. It's part of the fight, but I won't let it break us." Narrator building suspense. The next day, Karen made her move. She sent out a new letter to every homeowner, outlining proposed changes to the community guidelines, stricter rules on decorations, furniture, and personal items in front yards. The letter was carefully worded, but the message was clear: no exceptions, no compromises. Karen wasn't just fighting Dave anymore, she was fighting anyone who might challenge her control. At the next HOA meeting, the community center was packed beyond capacity. The air was thick with tension and anticipation. Karen stood at the front, poised and confident. She laid out the proposed changes, emphasizing the need for unity and maintaining property values. When it was Dave's turn to speak, the room fell silent. Dave calm, deliberate. Community means respect. Respect means listening to all voices, not just enforcing rules for the sake of power. He challenged the proposed changes, pointing out how they were vague and unfairly targeted personal expression. The debate grew heated. Karen accused Dave of trying to undermine the HOA, while Dave warned that unchecked power could turn a neighborhood into a prison. Narrator dramatic. Lines had been drawn in the sand. Neighbors took sides, some cheering quietly for Dave's courage, others whispering their support for Karen's order. But neither side realized how far this battle would go or the secrets that would soon come to light, changing everything. As the meeting ended, Lisa and Dave left with heavy hearts, but steady. Resolve. Lisa whispering, "This is bigger than we thought." Dave nodding, "It always is." Narrator closing this part. In Willow Creek Estates, the fight for a garden gnome had become a fight for the soul of the neighborhood. And the next chapter, it's where the real drama begins. The battle lines in Willow Creek Estates had been drawn. What began as a dispute over a garden gnome had spiraled into a full-blown neighborhood war. But beneath the surface, far more was at stake than anyone realized. Lisa felt the strained daily whispers behind closed doors, cold shoulders, during walks, and the heavy weight of uncertainty pressing down on their home. But Dave was quieter now, more focused. His mind wasn't just on HOA rules or garden decorations, it was on the secrets he had started uncovering. Weeks before, during the audit process, Dave had found something odd. Dave to Lisa, serious, there's something off about the HOAs. Finances, missing records, unexplained expenses. Lisa frowned. What does that mean? It means the story we've been told isn't the whole story. Narrator building suspense. Dave's instincts, honed from years in high-stakes operations, told him there was more to Karen's crusade than simple rule enforcement. Determined to find the truth, Dave began digging deeper, reviewing HOA meeting minutes, financial reports, and community emails. What he found wasn't just sloppy bookkeeping, it was a pattern of manipulation and control, all funneled through a few key figures. Karen wasn't just an enforcer, she was a gatekeeper for a small group, wielding disproportionate power over the neighborhood. More troubling were rumors whispered in hushed tones at the coffee shop and community gatherings, rumors of favoritism, backdoor deals, and intimidation tactics designed to silence dissent. Lisa worried. Are we really ready to take this on? This isn't just about us anymore. Dave determined. We don't have a choice. If we back down now, it won't stop. It'll only get worse for us and for everyone here. Narrator dramatic. As they prepared for the next HOA meeting, Dave and Lisa gathered evidence, ready to expose the truth. But Karen had eyes everywhere. One evening, Lisa noticed a car parked across the street, its windows tinted, engine running silently. She called Dave. Lisa whispering, Dave, there's someone watching us. Dave calm but alert, stay inside. I'm on my way. When Dave arrived, he found the car gone, but the feeling of being watched lingered. Narrator heightening tension. The deeper Dave dug, the more dangerous it became. Someone wanted this story buried. At the upcoming HOA meeting, tensions exploded. Karen launched a blistering attack, accusing Dave and Lisa of trying to disrupt community harmony. But Dave was ready. He presented his findings, documented financial irregularities, inconsistent enforcement, and evidence of intimidation. The room was stunned. Some neighbors gasped, others sat frozen, unsure where to stand. Karen's confident mask cracked. For the first time, she stumbled, searching for words. Narrator climactic. This was more than a fight over a garden gnome. This was a fight for the truth. And as the meeting ended with promises of a formal investigation, everyone knew the neighborhood would never be the same. Lisa exhausted but hopeful. We did what we had to do. Dave looking ahead. This is just the beginning. The investigation that Dave and Lisa forced upon Willow Creek Estates was underway. What started as a simple complaint had snowballed into something much bigger. A full review of HOA practices, led by an independent committee. The neighborhood was divided. Some rallied behind Karen, convinced she was just trying to keep order. Others whispered about the cracks showing in the facade of their tightly controlled community. For Dave and Lisa, every day brought new challenges. The eyes that once watched quietly were now openly hostile. Phone calls went unanswered. Invitations to neighborhood barbecues stopped. Lisa frustrated. I didn't think standing up would cost us so much. Dave steady. It's the cost of change. But change is necessary. Narrator building tension. At the center of the storm was Karen, who had become more aggressive in her tactics, late-night calls to neighbors, accusations of slander, and attempts to discredit Dave's background. But Dave was prepared. He had learned long ago how to navigate battles that go beyond words, how to stay calm when the pressure mounts and to keep fighting when others fold. One evening, As Lisa sat at the kitchen table reviewing the latest HOA financial reports, Dave's phone buzzed. It was a message from an anonymous source, a former board member who had stepped down quietly. Text message, "You're closer than you think. Watch your back." Lisa concerned, "Dave, what is this?" Dave's serious. "Someone knows the truth, but they're scared. We need to be careful." Narrator suspenseful. The message was both a warning and a promise. The truth was within reach, but the stakes were higher than ever. The next HOA meeting was set to be the most heated yet. The community center filled with more residents than ever before. The air thick with tension and anticipation. Karen took the floor first, delivering a speech defending her actions as necessary for the well-being of the neighborhood. But her words rang hollow to many. Then Dave stood up, calm and composed, ready to present the findings from the independent investigation. Dave firm, "The facts are clear. The HOA's enforcement actions were not only flawed, but in some cases, illegal. Financial mismanagement and abuse of power have undermined the trust of this community." Murmurs rippled through the room. Dave continuing, "This is a chance to rebuild, to create a neighborhood where respect and fairness come first, not control and fear." Narrator dramatic. The room exploded into debate. Some cheered, others shouted. Karen's supporters tried to drown out Dave's voice, but the momentum had shifted. When the meeting ended, the board announced it would take immediate steps to overhaul HOA policies and hold those responsible accountable, including Karen. But the battle wasn't over. That night, as Dave and Lisa locked their doors, the quiet neighborhood seemed darker, heavier. The threats had escalated. A smashed mailbox, a note left on their porch. "This isn't over." Lisa whispering, "Are we safe?" Dave resolute, "As long as we stand together, we are." Narrator closing this part. In Willow Creek Estates, the fight for justice had become a fight for survival. And sometimes, the strongest walls aren't made of bricks. They're made of people who refuse to back down. The neighborhood had never felt so charged. After weeks of battle, the HOA's walls were cracking, and everyone was holding their breath. For Dave and Lisa, the fight had become personal, and the stakes were higher than ever. But in the shadows, something unexpected was unfolding. A secret no one saw coming. The board's investigation had confirmed what Dave uncovered: misuse of power, financial irregularities, intimidation tactics. Karen was on the brink of losing her grip on the community. The next HOA meeting was set to be the final showdown. The room was packed, emotions raw and voices loud. Karen arrived, her usual confidence shaken, but still standing strong. She was ready to defend herself and her allies. When it was her turn, she took the microphone, eyes scanning the room. Karen, voice firm, but with a hint of desperation. "I admit I made mistakes, but I acted for what I believed was the good of this community." Then, just as the room settled, Dave stepped forward. Dave, calm but piercing, "Karen, it's not just about mistakes. It's about accountability." He laid out the evidence once again, clearer and more powerful than before. Financial audits, testimonials, letters from neighbors who'd been silenced. The atmosphere was electric. Narrator building suspense. But just as the board prepared to vote on Karen's removal, the unexpected happened. An envelope slipped quietly across the table to the chairperson. The chair opened it, eyes widening as she read aloud. Chairperson voice trembling. "This letter is from Karen's lawyer. It claims that any action against her without due process will lead to a costly legal battle for the HOA. They demand a delay in proceedings." The room buzzed with surprise and frustration. Karen smiled faintly, her eyes meeting Dave's with a mix of challenge and warning. Narrator dramatic pause. The legal threat threw the neighborhood into chaos. Some wanted to back down, fearing lawsuits and expense. Others, including Dave and Lisa, knew the fight was far from over. Lisa whispering to Dave, "Can we win this?" Dave quiet confidence, "We have to. Not just for us, for everyone here." Narrator twist. But then came the real twist. One that changed everything. Days later, a local journalist, tipped off by an anonymous source, published an expose on the HOA scandal. The story revealed Karen's aggressive tactics, the financial mismanagement, and the broader impact on the community's trust. The article went viral, catching the attention of local authorities and state regulators. Suddenly, the HOA's internal battle was under official scrutiny. Karen, overwhelmed and exposed, agreed to step down, avoiding a prolonged legal fight. Narrator relief and resolution. With Karen gone, the HOA began a slow but steady process of reform. New leadership promised transparency, fairness, and respect for homeowners' rights. For Dave and Lisa, it was more than a victory over one person. It was a reclaiming of their home, their peace, and their community. Lisa smiling, hopeful, "We did it. Together." Dave nodding, "This neighborhood can finally be a place where everyone belongs." Narrator closing. Sometimes the biggest battles start with the smallest things: a garden gnome, a lawn chair, a stand against injustice. And sometimes the quiet ones are the fiercest warriors of all. In Willow Creek Estates, the story wasn't just about rules. It was about courage, truth, and standing your ground when it matters most. Thanks for watching. If you've ever faced a tough fight in your neighborhood, share your story below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a story like this, because in every community, heroes come in all shapes and sizes, sometimes even with a garden gnome.